According to my watch, it's 6 o'clock, so we are beginning, and I'm really happy to have you all here. I'm Sherry Bracken. I'm going to be the moderator tonight. I'm with Lava 105 and Koa Country Radio and with Hawaii Public Radio when I'm not doing things like this. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters, and we are very delighted today to have with us three representatives of the League of Women Voters. We have Donna Oba and Sue Durson and Nina Ijima. It is also sponsored by Community Forums, which regularly does the forums here in this room. And the board members for Community Forums are Mike Matsukawa, Pete Hoffman, Jane Clement, Scott Ordway, who's right there, and Isaiah Heyer and Candy Elliman, right? Ellsworth. I am so sorry. I apologize. I was thinking of Von Elliman, the singer. Anyway, we're really, really happy that they sponsor these kind of forums because having education about all kinds of topics is super important. And for you, thank you so much for being here. We'd also like to give a special thank you to the Leopodino family because they're the McDonald's folks and they provided coffee and little snacks outside and they always do that for us, and thank you so much for them. We have had a number of questions submitted in advance for this forum, which, by the way, is for County Council District 7. And if you would like to ask additional questions, there are some forms on which you may do so. If you didn't get one at the front door, you can wave your hand wildly, and some of the folks in the back will bring them to you. Look at that. We already have a wild hand waver right here. Marjorie Irway is doing that, and she can write out her question. Tonight we're going to be hearing from the candidates for County Council District 7, which is essentially Central Kona. Starts at the sort of north part of Kealakekua and winds up through this part of the county. It is bounded on the north by the district that is now occupied by Karen Eoff, and in the south, Miley David is the incumbent in that district. And we do not have an incumbent running in this district. Drew Kanuha is the incumbent now, but he is running for State Senate 3. So we have 4 folks who have not been in office before. So this is a very interesting opportunity we have tonight. In case you don't know it, the restrooms are out that door. And the other thing is, if you could please silence your cell phones, that would be extremely helpful. Sound tonight and also video, and the video is for later viewing on Naleo TV, is being provided by Scott Ordway back here and by Isaiah Heyer and by David Yap, and we thank all 3 of them for doing that good work for us. Because we can have fabulous candidates, but if nobody can hear them, then what's the point? It's not going to be very good for anybody. It's really important to learn about candidates. I have had the nice opportunity to moderate a number of candidate forums, and I find that I learn something new about the candidates almost every time I hear from them, no matter who the candidates are. So listen to the candidates tonight, but take the time to go to other opportunities to hear from them. Most of them have participated in interviews on Naleo TV, and Naleo.tv has a number of candidate forums for all kinds of different offices that can be super helpful. For example, we did a governor forum about, it was June 15th. And you can see that forum on Naleo.tv. And by the way, there will be another governor forum coming up in Hilo on July 20th at the Arc of Hilo, and that will be available on Big Island Video News, and then ultimately on Naleo TV, bigislandvideonews.com. So take the opportunity because, frankly, when you hear from candidates more than once, you learn new things, and you learn more about who they are. They also typically have their own websites, and then also the League of Women Voters has a website, vote411.org, and that website has invited all candidates to submit their bios. Is there anybody here who has not submitted their bio to vote411.org? Are you looking guilty, Bronston? Just checking? Okay. Anybody guilty? Okay. Then they've all submitted their bios. Donna Oba in the back with League of Women Voters confirmed that. So take the time to look and see who they are and learn more about them. How many of you were here at the last forum we did for State Senate 3 a week ago? I guess the better question would be who was not? People were not? Okay, good. Then you get my voting spiel, which is this. The last day to register to vote to make sure you're on the list is July 12th, which is this coming Thursday. So if you've not registered, the League of Women Voters folks have the forms, and you can get the forms for registering, for changing your address, and also for requesting an absentee ballot. And if you want an absentee ballot, you can either request one just for this election or for all elections, and that's what I personally do. So my absentee ballot will be arriving next week because they're going to be mailed out the week of July 16th. People who live in the Puna district, their ballots were already all mailed out just because of the special circumstances down there. But you can request up until August 4th, and just make sure if you get an absentee ballot to fill it out and either send it back or take it to any polling place on election day. Because an interesting thing about our county is we have really good registration percentage, like 70% of the eligible voters. But in the last few elections, we've had a really abysmal turnout, in my personal opinion, like 40, 50%, not quite good enough. And the fact is, if you want to have a say in who gets to be our representatives for any office, please vote. That's what's really important. Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education." And that is what we are going to get tonight. Now, I'd like to introduce our candidates now, and I'd like you to hold your applause until we get all of them introduced, and then we can welcome them as a group. First up, running for County Council District 7 is Kelly Drysdale, and she's on the left here. She was raised in California, went to Orange Coast College and the University of Georgia and San Diego State University. She majored in radio and TV communications. She worked in sports television for 15 years, companies such as ABC Sports, NBC, CBS, and she, all at the same time, produced and directed the annual Don Drysdale Hall of Fame Golf Classic for 13 years. She came to Hawaii to assist her parents in managing their two restaurants, Don Drysdale's Club 53 and Drysdale's 2. She also managed 6 divisions at the Matalani Beach Hotel and Bungalows and was with Associa Hawaii as a property manager. Currently, she's Director of Logistics at Kona Coffee and Tea Company. Next, we have Bronston Kalei Kaso. Bronston was born and raised in Holualoa. He's a graduate of Makualani Christian Academy and is currently attending the University of Hawaii at Hilo, pursuing his degree in political science. He was an Eagle Scout, and his project was to create an informational and interment directory for the West Hawaii Veterans Cemetery. He's currently the Boy Scouts Finance Chair. He's a Rotarian with the Kona Sunrise Club and handles their public relations. He's a member of the Kona Crime Prevention Committee and the Hawaii County Game Management Advisory Commission. Mr. Kaso currently works as a flight operations coordinator for Paradise Helicopters. Next, we have Cynthia Nazara, who was born on Oahu but raised here in Kailua Kona. She has a strong genealogy that stems from the west side of Hawaii Island. She went to Konawaina High and graduated from McKinley High, and she went to Leeward College, Rema Bible College, and Southwestern Christian College. She's a member of a number of community organizations: the West Hawaii Fishing Council, the Hawaii Island Burial Council, Kona Historical Society, the Ka'upalehu Marine Sanctuary. She's on the advisory board for Kaloko Honokahau National Park. She's a member of the county's Open Space Committee and is president of Kona Hawaiian Civic Club. Finally, we have Rebecca Schutte Villegas, and Ms. Villegas is born and raised on the Big Island and is a graduate of Konawaina High School. She has a bachelor's in business management from the University of Hawaii at Manoa and a certificate of completion from Ulu Mau, a Hawaii Island leadership series. She has a long history of working for and with Hawaii's nonprofit and for-profit organizations. She was Kona Brewing Company's marketing manager and championed their sustainability, event sponsorship, and community partnership programs. She was president of Kohanaiki Ohana. Some people say it Kohanaiki, some people say it Kohanaiki, but Auntie Elizabeth Lee gave me a tutorial, and forevermore it will be Kohanaiki coming from my lips, because nobody bucked Auntie Elizabeth. And she worked there as was head of a team of community advocates to create the Kohanaiki Beach Park. I'd like to, first of all, thank all of you for running, because having a commitment to public service is really fabulous for our county. And I'd like to invite all of you to welcome them. I'd like to, that's for her, not me. I'd like to ask you all to please hold your applause or boos or anything else that might be an expression of how you feel about the candidates' answers for the rest of the time when we hear from them, so that we can devote all our time to hearing from them. And something absolutely critical for these kinds of forums is timing. We like to give equal time to all the candidates, and to do that we have professional timers with us. Tanya Power, who's working with Candy Ellsworth. Tanya's a real estate agent and broker, and Candy works at the Natural Energy Lab, and we're really grateful they're here. And what we do is we have our electronic timer. The candidates will be timed starting from when they start to speak. They'll get a yellow light and a yellow card at 15 seconds left, and at no time left, they're done, and they know it. I'll try to be gentle since they're all new to this. So, any questions before we begin, candidates? Shoot, sorry. Shoots, okay. We invited each candidate to make a 1-minute opening statement, and we're going to do that starting from left to right, starting with Kelly Drysdale. Kelly, you have 1 minute for an opening statement.
Right, thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking the League of Women Voters for having this forum, and the Community Forum for putting it all together, and McDonald's of Hawaii. But Sherry made mention of my diverse background, which I believe makes me somewhat of a unique candidate. I believe that diversity is at the core of our community, and with my diverse experiences, I can deliver a different outlook to this council. Presently, I serve as the Director of Logistics for Kona Coffee and Tea Company, which means that all contracts come across my desk. And I'm also responsible for being in compliant with OSHA, which is the Department of Labor, compliant with the Department of Health, compliant with the Department of Sanitation, compliant with the Department of Liquor Control. So I have experience with a lot of those administrations. I substantiate invoices for our payables department, and I oversee all the donations that come through and that are made by our company, and making sure that we stay within budget.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Next, we have Bronson Casso. Bronson, you have 1 minute for an opening statement.
Aloha ahia'i kako, aloha.
Aloha.
First of all, I want to thank Sherry for all the hard work she did with this, along with the League of Women Voters, and Kona Coffee Tea for helping out with this as well. I am a coffee farmer. I am an Eagle Scout. I've been in this community since I remember. I was born and raised right here, and I understand the needs of this community. Being an Eagle Scout has taught me leadership. Being an Eagle Scout and working with our community has taught me a lot. Working with our veterans, working in the partnership with the Parks and Recreations has taught me a wealth of knowledge. And likewise, being a coffee farmer, it's important to me for us to understand the agriculture of our island. So I want to be able to push those issues. And likewise, as the Game Management Advisory Commissioner for this district, it is important for me to represent our people in the hunting community. Aloha.
Thank you, Mr. Casso. Cynthia Nazara, you have 1 minute to make an opening statement, please. 1 minute.
Okay, I'm Cynthia Nazara, born here, born on Oahu, raised here, went back to Oahu to finish my schooling. But coming back and being part of this west side of Hawaii, like you heard, my genealogy stems from here. And my part is trying to get this community together. And there's a big gap between government and whatever it is. You heard from Sherry how there's a lack of voting. And so with me, I want to be, as part of growing in our community, my kuleana is to hear the heart of everybody, no matter where you are and who you are. And your kuleana is to voice your concerns that will benefit not only you or me, but everybody here in this community. And so I'm that's why I got so much involved in a lot of clubs, organizations, so that I could be a part of making a difference in this community.
Thank you very much. Rebecca Shoot Villegas. Did I get the Villegas part right? Oh, good, good. Rebecca Shoot Villegas, 1 minute, please, for your opening statement.
Aloha, and thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you to everyone who had a hand in making this happen. There were probably hundreds of people that it took to bring this gathering about. I'm here to humbly ask for your support as I seek to represent District 7 on the Hawaii County Council. I've born and raised on the Big Island. I have the values, vision, and vested interest in the future of Hawaii Island. I have a track record of integrity, stewardship, and listening for common goals. I will involve constituents in identifying solutions and in decision-making processes. I have advocated for the ethical care of our island home since I was a teenager. I have diplomatically collaborated with local businesses, political, and community leaders. Our county is faced with a variety of issues, from homelessness and infrastructure improvements to social and environmental justice. I believe I'm ready for the honor and challenge of holding public office. Mahalo.
Thank you. We now have a 2-minute question, and Ms. Drysdale, we're going to start with you first again for this 2-minute question. None of you have served in this kind of public office that we know of. None of you mentioned it. So we'd like to understand how you've been preparing for this job. This is a very serious job. We'd like to know what kind of meetings you've gone to, what instruction, what you're doing to make sure that we understand that you are ready to handle the job of being our representative for Hawaii County Council District 7. And take 2 minutes, Ms. Drysdale, and give us a sense of that.
All right, thank you. Well, as far as community forums are concerned, I've attended quite a few of them, which I believe are really beneficial to all of us. The active shooter one, which I found extremely, not entertaining, excuse me, informational. And the other one, well, actually quite a few of them, but I've also watched a lot of the county council meetings on video and watched how they perform in their tasks. I've spoken with many of past and present council people and people in various positions in the community, and I have given and received much information back and forth about what are some of the things that need to be done in our community, and that's part of most of the things that I've tried to do.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Casso, 2 minutes, please.
Well, I've been boots on the grounds. I've been everywhere. I've been down in Puna. I've been assisting those folks and understanding the legal side of everything down there. Likewise, I've been a part of the Game Management Advisory Commission and understand the legal side of hunting and fishing rights and hunting rights, all the way down to going out to the community, knocking on people's doors, understanding what the needs are, looking at different issues and trying to find a solution to the problems that our community faces. That's important to me when we go out and canvass in our community. Likewise, I've read extensively on the community development plan. I've looked and seen how big this thing is, how old this thing is, because it's about the same age as me. And then likewise, looking at our operating budget, understanding how our operating budget works, looking at different revenue sources that our county accumulates, all the way down to reading the capital improvement projects list, which is important to us because we provide funding for our roads and improve our roads, improve our homeless problem. So I've been preparing myself very well for this.
Thank you, Mr. Casso. Ms. Nazara, 2 minutes. How are you preparing for this job? Big job.
Well, I've been preparing ever since. Being involved in a lot of the community organizations, from the mountain down to the sea. And right now I'm the Makai Watch coordinator up at Kalaimano down to Kekua Point. But the thing is that collectively, we have to not only stay up here in the mountain and the ocean, but in the middle there. There are people that, for me, I have a very strong desire so that a lot of our people, regardless of your race or color, that we need to learn to vote. And that is my passion, is to educate them. Some of them have this desire to like, I don't want to vote, why don't you want to vote? And the big question for me is why. And so I think education is a big part of that, is to learning, teaching and working with them to change the way that they think, that they can be a part of this great community and help it grow to where it's supposed to, but because it's supposed to be a kako thing. You know, it's not about only the county or the state or the federal. It's a part of all the people that need to be involved, because they won't get there, or we won't get there without all of you.
Thank you. Ms. Villegas, 2 minutes, please. How are you preparing for the job?
Aloha. Wow. Big shoes to fill, a big position to take on, and what an adventure and a journey it's been so far. I have been asking a lot of questions. And I'm a pretty good talker, and I'm not always the best listener, but through this process, I have been learning to listen more, to really hear what people are saying, what the needs of their heart, what their concerns, and in that capacity, getting a better understanding of people that are really feeling empowered about our county and those that are feeling a little disenchanted. I've enjoyed listening to the constituents. I've met with current county council members and past county council members to find out what their experiences have been, what some of the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are in this role. I've met with Hawaii representatives, community and business leaders. It's amazing how many people have ideas. And actually, you know, when you hear out how they're feeling and some of the concerns they have for issues, and you wait and listen, oftentimes there's a solution in there as well, just waiting to come out. And if you listen and give people an opportunity to process, then we get to the solution-mindedness. I've been attending community forums. I was at the Department of Health Cesspools and VOG forum. I visited the micro-housing blessing in Puna. I've been watching county council meetings, reading the paper, answering multiple endorsement questionnaires, and getting familiar with the county charter and county rules. And most of all, I've had to sit and listen to my own inner voice and take periods of reflection, which I think is a healthy part of this job and a healthy part for any one of us to sustain ourselves in positions of community service.
Thank you very much, Ms. Villegas. And I'd like to go back to each of the candidates for a 30-second question, which is this. What's the most recent county council meeting you either watched or attended? What was the topic? What struck you? 30 seconds, please.
I watched the meetings this morning, and they were talking about the VRBO bill. I was heartened to see how many people agreed with the VRBO bill. There were some opportunities for improvement on the bill, but for the most part, a lot of people within the community support it because there are issues in how their neighborhoods are being affected by unattended vacation rentals.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, when she says VRBO bill, she means the vacation rental bill. Ms. Nazaro, what's the most recent county council meeting you've either attended or watched? What was the topic? What are your impressions? 30 seconds.
It was the
Talk to them.
vacation one, and how there's a split. You know, some of them that do have it, they're all for it, and those that are not and don't really care for it, because whether we believe it or not, we have a problem with homelessness and houselessness in this community. So we need to look at that on a bigger picture instead of just focusing on vacation, making money.
Thank you. Mr. Casso.
I went, the last meeting I went to was for the 1/4% general excise tax increase, and they passed it. It was interesting to see the different things that played out through that. There are, I believe, as it started from 0.5% general excise tax increase all the way down to where it is now, and when is it going to become law?
Thank you. Ms. Drysdale, the most recent county council meeting you either watched or attended, topic and your impression.
We
30
seem to be having a consensus here mostly on Bill 108, which was the short-term rentals. And I was surprised to see, it goes into effect the 20th of July. And I believe the fees that they're asking for people to pay on that is $500, which to me seems a little steep. So I understand that the communities need to have some control for rentals, but I think there's some work that can be done on that, even though it has passed.
Just a follow-up, did they pass that bill today?
It was on its third draft, so I'm not
To
sure.
my knowledge, they postponed it. Am I wrong about that?
I
Okay, because you made it sound like it had passed. so I just wanted-
I'm sorry. No, that was the meeting that I viewed.
Okay. I'd like to ask each one of you, again, you're not known entities to us, so I'd like to ask you, and I'm going to start with you, Ms. Nazara, take 1 minute and tell us about one or two accomplishments that you're particularly proud of that you'd like to share with the group, so we understand what your capabilities are, because clearly we want someone in County Council who can accomplish things. So Ms. Nazara, 1 minute, accomplishments.
Okay, I don't know if anybody remembers, but we had a problem with all the Federated States people coming here. And they were giving them a lot of fines and tickets. And I said to them, why are you giving them a ticket? Because we're going to run out of fish before they run out of money. So what we did was I wrote for a grant, and NOAA gave me a grant. And so I went to the university and gathered some people from the Cruzaos and the Palauans and the Micronesian people, and educated them and welcomed them and told them, I want to embrace you. But before I do that, I want to teach you how to take your slippers off outside the door. And once you learn to do that, we can work together. And that was a big accomplishment in this community here.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Drysdale, 1 minute, please. Give us a sense of what you can do, an accomplishment or two that you're proud of.
Well, I originally started with a charrette down at Maka'eo, which was to improve that area for sports down there. And we decided that because of the passive side and the sports side, that we would leave it as is per se, and then go to work on a regional park, which is something that I've been championing for the last almost 10 years now. We've gone through many meetings with both administrations, Mayor Kim and Mayor Kanoy. We had a charrette on that in 2012. We're working very closely with the administration to get an EA and a PER accomplished on that, so then at some point we can maybe get some ground broken and actually have a regional park right over here on 193 acres, and which will bring in not only tournaments, and but also finances to the local community as well.
Could you define, please, EA and PER?
I'm sorry, an environmental assessment and a preliminary engineer's report.
Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas, could you take 1 minute, please, and tell us about one or two accomplishments and that you're proud of, to give us a sense of your capabilities?
Sure. One of my greatest lifetime accomplishments thus far has been my participation with the Kohana Iki Ohana. Since my days as a teenager, I've stood in front of land use commissions and county councils speaking for the preservation of that area. I have been the president of Kohana Iki Ohana for approximately the last 10 years, and during my time of service, I had the honor of following up after Karen Eoff, and before her was Angel Pelago, and in my time of service, the park has been built. We've sat at the table with members of the Department of Parks and Recreation from the county and with the developer, and through many hours and lots of compromise and communication and understanding and back and forth, we have successfully built a park at Kohana Iki, where we still have camping. There are cultural practices at the end of the bay, and I'm extremely proud of the park that's there and will be there in perpetuity.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Villegas, for the next question, and it has to do, and each of you, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Bronson. I apologize. And I've got it right here. You're next.
All right.
Will you forgive me, please?
I will forgive you.
All right, take 1 minute. But still no more, even though I messed up.
Yeah. Well, I have plenty of accomplishments, but the two that I can think of right now, more recently, is the Waianae aerial shooting that the Department of Land and Natural Resources have been conducting over the Waianae mountain range. And I've worked with the Game Management Advisory Commission along with the mayor to supply testimony, and we have the county's support to end the aerial shootings within the Waianae mountain range. Likewise, I mean, I have my Eagle Scout too. That's a pretty big accomplishment for my age. But I also was in the, with Paradise Helicopters, I created a different environmental side of things, and we are certificated by, certified by the Hawaii Ecotourism Association. So that was one of my largest accomplishments there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And again, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to disrespect you. And now, Ms. Villegas. And for each one of you, we're going to give you 1 minute to hear, if you are elected, what do you see as your top priorities for this island and specifically for this district? 1 minute, and we're starting with you, Ms. Villegas. 1 minute.
All right, so in the interest of time, I will try to stick to the three. Number one is homelessness. In talking to many constituents in District 7, homelessness comes up as a top priority. It's affecting businesses, it's affecting homeowners, it affects every one of us who have an empathetic heart in general, because it is a tragic scenario to see folks struggling to put a roof over their head. I also feel that biosecurity is extremely important for our island and for our state. There needs to be some action taken in checking the containers as they land here. The introduction of invasive species could be and is already devastating to our environment, to our ecosystem. It will hit us economically. It will hit the visitor industry. And next, I'd like to follow through with the completion of current projects in District 7. The Lonokona Sewer Improvement Project, the Kahalu Beach Park Master Plan, and the Holualoa and Kahakai Elementary Schools Safer Routes to Schools.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nazara, what do you consider your top priorities for this island and for this district? 1 minute, please.
Well, for this district, my top priority is sustainability. We as a people here, we don't have any sustainability, whether it's a home, a place to eat, a place to sleep, or anything, even education. You know, we need sustainability, especially if something happens like what's happening at Kapoho. We don't have anything to lean back on. And so if we step back and do everything the simple way, you know, water, the things that we take care, everything, then we can become, we have to learn together how to be sustainable as a people. And I think transparency in communication through everybody and anybody, children, whoever it is one of the keys to success. You know, transparency communication is very, very important in everybody knowing what I want, what you want, how we're going to do it together, and why we're going to do it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso, what do you consider your top priorities if you are elected? 1 minute, please.
Homeless housing, our water wells, and the other one is roads. So our homeless and housing issue has been an ongoing problem, and so I would like to see Village 9, which is just going to be right down here, become built, go through the environmental assessments. But let's create a task force. Let's have the community come together and work together in ensuring that our homeless are off the streets. I walked with Dr. Kopp, who walked around the entire island for our homeless, and I hope that you all can join me in solving this issue of homeless. The other is our water wells. You know, our water wells our equipment keeps on. Sorry, I'm so passionate. Or keeps on shutting down. So let's create an operating procedure and a strategic plan for those. And then the other thing is our roads, and let's keep on supporting capital improvement projects and make sure that we have those that monies that come right into our roads.
Thank you. Ms. Drysdale, what are your top priorities if you are elected? 1 minute, please.
Again, we have somewhat of a consensus with the homelessness issue. I, too, have spoken with some of the former and present people that have been on council and some business people in the community. I'm not in favor, quite frankly, of Village 9 here, only because we're starting with Lava Rock, and there's some other options that are closer in proximity to the homeless services. So I think that there is another option that has not been addressed yet, and we're still looking into that, which is in fact closer to the homeless services. And of course, I've already mentioned, I am still championing the regional park here. I think that it's something huge. We've outgrown, we've done everything at Maka'eo, and we really truly need a regional park here. Every place else on this island has places for people to play, and we're missing out in West Hawaii.
Thank you very much. I'd like to really capitalize on something that most of you mentioned, and that is homelessness. Clearly, we had a chronic homeless problem before the lava flow, and a lot of talk now is all about the lava flow evacuees who are homeless, but our chronic homeless problem here issue here in Kailua Kona is huge for us. So starting with you, Mr. Casso, I'd like you to take 90 seconds and give us more detail about how you think we can address the chronic homeless problem we have here specifically in the Kona area. 90 seconds, please.
Well, the problems we face with the homeless issue is that there's a variety of them. There's primarily 3 different types, and it goes by a third. So we have our chronic homeless, we have, I believe, those who are mentally ill or have drug addictions, or all the way down to those who are priced out of paradise, as what we normally say. So I think that if, Camp Kikaha was a great example of how that structure worked. I think that we should have supplied more funding, more federal grants to Camp Kikaha, but it's time to move forward. And so I think Village 9 is a great opportunity to do so. We can supply block grants, hopefully we can apply for block grants to supply Village 9 and build it up to create a safe zone. And that's what we should accomplish. And I think we can utilize different services like Hope Services, Catholic Charities, to come together and work with our county to provide for those who will be staying at Village 9. Likewise, I was talking to a really great friend. We should exempt a law that it's illegal to stay inside your car between a certain hours, and there's going to be a lot of homeless that will be able to stay at Village 9. I think that's part of the ongoing problem as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas, 90 seconds, please. How do you plan to address the chronic homeless problem?
Well, the chronic homeless problem is also intricately connected and tied to affordable housing here in Hawaii. That's a big issue. We are all concerned about it. It's affected me in my life when I was a single mom trying to find a place to live that I could afford. And I'm so grateful that we have such a great community. Panhandling, property destruction, piles of rubbish in parks and vacant land, all these are effects of homelessness and are vast and far-reaching. It's vital to identify, as Bronston said, the difference between vagrants and those without a home. There are multiple and very diverse circumstances in which somebody can be experiencing the status of homelessness. Village 9 will be a start at providing temporary housing and wraparound services for those with extenuating circumstances such as mental health issues. The Institute for Human Services, the Neighborhood Place of Kona, and the Hawaii Food Basket have worked with these populations for decades, and they know much more about these people as humans than I do or many of the people in leadership in the county do. We have an opportunity to work with those organizations and collaborate so that they can provide the wraparound services. I support allocating county funds for collaborative solutions that increase the inventory of affordable housing in District 7.
Thank you. Ms. Drysdale, how do you plan to approach the homeless situation? 90 seconds, please.
Well, again, I think that it's been addressed that the affordable housing issue is definitely something that we are in a crisis with. We need to use some county funds to get affordable housing built so that we can take some people off the streets, because that does happen to be some of the reason why some people are in fact homeless. As Bronston and Rebecca have already mentioned, that there's mental health issues and there's also drug issues, and we need to get some people that are of that caliber to, I think Dr. Josh Green put together a program that he's debuting over on Oahu, And I asked him, why on Oahu? Why not here? And he said, well, they're doing a pilot program there because they have so many more people that are homeless there. And I said, yeah, but it's the same issue. We really need to have the same types of programs here on the Big Island. And so those are the things that, I mean, between county funding for affordable housing, getting some of the charities involved, like the Catholic charities and Hope Services, and even there's another gentleman who's a realtor here who is putting together some funding for some housing and some services for the homeless as well. I'll leave him nameless, but that's another opportunity that's coming to us as well.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nazara, 90 seconds, please. How do you plan to approach the chronic homeless situation?
Well, like the first time I was saying, why? Why is it happening here and all over the United States, but why? How about we know what to do, and we know how we're going to do it, but why are they there? And, you know, like I said, education. So what do? Tell every family here to take home a homeless person. But there are people, we're trying to make a camp or housing for the homeless. We have local people that are living from paycheck to homelessness. And when you're walking down the street, you know, you see people that you're associated with, you know, you've seen them every day for years before this, and now you see them on the street. And you're like, you gotta have a heart. And you're like, what happened? Why are they there? So education, getting them, building them a house and putting them in there doesn't do it. You know, you gotta give them back their dignity, help them, work with them, educate them, so that they can feel good about themselves and become better citizens and make us a better community here on the west side here. You know, we have a lot of compassion here, and everybody says aloha. Really, do you know the word aloha?
Thank you very much. I'd like to continue on the theme of the chronic homeless, but this aimed really at the people who are, I will call them the working poor. Some of the police officers, Officer Justin Gaspar, for example, has told me, since I'm not awake past 8 o'clock at night usually, that at Kmart, for example, there's a lot of folks who are working people who park in their cars and they sleep there, sometimes with families, because they don't have a home, even though they are working members of our community and therefore kind of productive. So I'd like each one of you to take one additional minute and talk about what the approach should be if it's different for folks who are working, contributing to the community, not mentally ill, not drug users, but still don't have homes. And I'd like to go back again, starting with you, Mr. Casso. 1 minute, please.
I think I've addressed it, but I think that when we will have these safe zones, because currently it's illegal to live inside of your car, but if we allow property to have an exemption for them, then we'll be in a really great place. And I think Village 9 is a great example of that, where we can build a parking lot and have facilities like showers, food, and necessary things that every person needs. I think that's a great opportunity for us to build on top of Village 9 and that vision for Village 9. It's a safe zone. So if we can all come to a consensus for those who live in their cars, I think that would be a really great plan for our future.
Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas, 1 minute, please.
I agree with Bronston in the concept of a safe zone. Families living in their cars, it's tragic. I was speaking to a girlfriend today who works with the Boys and Girls Club, and one of the young children they work with was bawling and crying, and she found out that he was living in a car with his dad and had been for the last few weeks. How it affects our young people is really the most tragic, and I see quite a few teachers in here today, and that affects our future generations. Providing a safe zone for families that are willing to work hard, that need kind of a leg up and that bit of a boost and that opportunity, and providing the wraparound services for them. Another friend works for the Neighborhood Place of Kona, and they have numerous families that they're working on, trying to find them a place to live so that a lot of that stress gets reduced and their children aren't as traumatized.
Ms. Drysdale, 1 minute, please, for the working poor, not the mentally ill drug users.
Yeah, I mean, both Rebecca and Bronson have touched on this, that we need to have some sort of community that where people can, if in fact they are living out of their cars. And I actually worked with a woman who lived in Hilo, but because her job was on this side, she would drive over here, live in her car every night, and then drive home on the weekends. And I said, how are you doing that? Why are you doing that? She said, because it's just too costly, and I couldn't find a job in Hilo that would pay me the same types of monies as what I'm making here. So this is what she was having to do in order to maintain her position on this side. I agreed that if there were areas where people could park safely at night, where there were facilities for them, that would greatly assist a lot of people that are in that position.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nazara, 1 minute, please.
Like I said, there's a lot of families, like they said, living from paycheck to paycheck. And when you do that, you see these families, I've seen them up there at Kmart, and you think, why? Why are they there? And like Kelly said, they just can't make it. The cost of living is high, this and that. But as a community and we need to get out there and talk to them. And I've talked to many, many, many homeless people. I work on the highway, and they say, I don't want to live there. Why should I live there? There's too many rules. But you need to, like I said, educate them and change the way that they think so that they can become this community that they may be the ones sitting in here right now.
Thank you. One thing I want to mention about City and County of Honolulu, they did a really good thing. They purchased a building, which is where you mentioned the Josh Green project. That's also a project of Queens Medical Center. When I had the nice opportunity to talk with Art Ushijima, who's the Queens CEO, he mentioned that City and County bought a building that they could use for living, medical care, all kinds of services. And that's just a thought for the future for whichever one of you gets elected. Now, if you are elected, you're going to be in the legislative branch of our government. We have 3 branches. The executive is our administration, that would be the mayor. There's the judicial, and that would be prosecuting attorney. But then there's the legislative. So if you are elected, I'd like you to take 90 seconds and tell us what the first piece of legislation is that you would introduce and why it would be your first piece of legislation. So it's a 90-second question, and Ms. Nazara, we're going to start with you on this one. First piece of legislation, 90 seconds.
Well, the first piece I would try to introduce is a better way, better management in a lot of our government. We all know that the county and or the state isn't perfect, and they're not doing everything that we think that they should. And there's no transparency in communication. I think it should be open to everyone and knowing, like I said, education is a very big thing with me. That's why we don't have a lot of voters. And I think by introducing this new thing about better management, homeless is good. For instance, there's homeless there. And what do you do with them? You put them in the house and then you just leave them there. But there's got to be better management, better programs for them to join and be part of. And we can't do that without, they say, money. And so we have to be a part of knowing how to get that money and where the money is going to be allocated. Is it going to be allocated over there for parks, or is it going to be allocated to the human being over there before they can play in the park? So that's very important. The human, for me, the mental and emotional part of the human needs to have a say in a lot of these things. And so listening to the constituents that are out there is a big part of going forward.
Thank you very much. Ms. Drysdale, what's your first piece of legislation and why? 90 seconds, please.
Well, I have spoken with many people who have sat out here in 2 to 3 hour wait to get their car registered, to get their license renewed, to a multitude of things that have to do with our DMV. I'd like to, at some point, work with the Department of Finance and see if we can somehow, I was actually over in Hilo last Thursday or Thursday before, and I had to get my car re-registered. There were approximately 12 to 15 people in front of me, It took me maybe 15 to 18 minutes to get from the end of the line, pay my thing, get my sticker, and walk out of there. Now, I asked the lady at the counter, I said, why are you guys so fast? Why are we not doing these same types of things over in Kona? And she just kind of smirked and laughed and said, next. And so I'd really like to see what we could do to possibly get the DMV in line with the Hilo side. I mean, they are doing something right, because they're moving the people, they're processing, they're getting people through. And we're having a somewhat of a problem over here. So that would be something that I'd like to investigate.
Take 15 more seconds and tell us what specific piece of legislation, what's the legislation? 15 seconds.
I can't give you that, I'm sorry.
Okay, very good. Ms. Villegas, what's your first piece of legislation, 90 seconds, and why?
Having just attended the Department of Health presentation on the requirements to transition from cesspools to septic tanks, it was really, really interesting to learn that septic tanks don't necessarily solve the problem of contaminating groundwater or our oceans. I would like to present legislation that would make it easier for homeowners and businesses to install gray water systems. I think that there's an opportunity if we reduce our water consumption. So it would be like a water conservation legislation, allowing for technologies like low-flow showers and gray water systems and low-flush toilets. The Civic Center is a fantastic example of a facility that was built with those priorities and standards in mind. I listened to a lot of people talk about fears and a bit of anger at the thought of having to spend $15,000 to $30,000 to transition their cesspool to a septic tank, and the Department of Health agreeing that a septic tank doesn't necessarily mitigate the problem, and with the geology of our island, not all pieces of property are even appropriate for a septic tank. So I think that introducing legislation that allows for education and the technology for people to reduce their water consumption would allow for us to reduce the issues with contaminating our groundwater and our oceans.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso.
Let's bridge the gap between affordable housing and temporary housing. Let's work with, let's create legislation that would allow us to build great buildings like Uluvini, for example. That's a great example of our county funds, block grants, going into funding a low-income housing units for affordable housing. Let's create projects like that right here in Kona. Let's create them all over the island, because we're going to need it. We're going to need it because affordable housing stinks here.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is going to be a 2-minute question going to Ms. Drysdale first. One of our attendees suggests that Kona is no longer paradise, but is going in the other direction. He specifically said which direction, but I'll just leave it to your imagination. If not paradise, it's the other way. And he says it's partly because land use policies and practices continue to favor the few. Mansions have outpaced affordable dwellings in agriculturally zoned lands. And there's big concern that the quality of life in Kona will continue to deteriorate. So if elected, what are your principles, vision, and values relative to land use? What is your land use philosophy? And this is a 2-minute question. And so everybody knows, I did tell them in advance because this person sent the question in advance. So I think they've had a chance to think about this. 2 minutes,
Well,
your vision.
You did say it was land use, but it was a little bit ambiguous, so I didn't know in which direction you were going to be going. Land use, yes, we do have to figure out where we're going to be going in the future with that. Yes, there have been some places that are where the rich play and the poor have no place to stay. But what we need to do is figure out as a community, like what they've been doing down in Puna with the lava issue. They have taken some of the county properties and they've turned it into houses and homes for people that have lost everything. And I think that if we were to be able to take some of the county property here and do something of the same nature, we might be able to take some people out of the situations where they don't have homes, they can't afford homes, they're homeless, or anything like that. the special management area, which is something that is pretty much all coastal. We want to try to protect that, and I think with Cynthia's job in the 2% Commission, we've been able to purchase a lot of properties that are taking all those types of lands out of the pocketbooks of people who can otherwise probably afford them. So I think that what we need to do again is to take some of the properties that possibly the county has and turn them into areas where we can make some affordable housing for people.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso, what is your land use philosophy? So sorry, this is, my obsessive compulsive. You have to be straight so the guys on TV can see you. Land use philosophy, 2 minutes, please.
Well, I support smart development. I believe that as a native Hawaiian, I believe in our resources. And I also believe in, as a game management advisory commissioner, I also believe in our hunting as well. So I think that there is smart development as long as it goes through the EIS and the archaeological studies. Those are important. The other thing is we need to support affordable housing as well, and that's going back to the last answer I had. And we need to support affordable housing to get people off the streets, to get people who can't afford living here. We're sending individuals like myself who's just out of college. They're going to the mainland and they're staying out there. We want to improve our home, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go to you, Ms. Nazara, next. Your land use philosophy.
One of my principles is the long-term effects of the decisions that I make right now, which means how does the decisions I make today, how will it affect my great-grandchildren 50 years from now? So when I make a decision here, I need to think about them and not me right now, because the ones past us made a decision, and that's why we're in this, where we are now, in our land use. I'm an advocate for culturally, everything. I'm on the highway, I'm there, I'm a cultural coordinator there on the Queen Ka'ahumanu thing, and I make sure, working with the engineers, that they're doing what we say taking care of, the compaction, everything that you do. And we have 5 engineers checking on each other, and that's how it's got to be. And that is how I say in our government now, in our land use, we need people checking up on other people. It's a shame to say that, but hey, that's the truth. We know that you got to check on them because that guy let that guy slide. And that's not how, because what's good for one guy is good for everybody. And so all we need to do as a community, and for me, kako is a big word. We have to take better care of the land collectively. And taking care is like from the mountain down to the sea and on the sides. And so if we all work together, small subdivisions, big parks, and whatever it is, it has to be a kako thing. Because we here cannot, no matter how much money you pay us, do it by ourselves.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nazara. Ms. Villegas, tell us about your land use philosophy, 2 minutes.
All right. And just to clarify, this is my own personal land use philosophy, correct? Not necessarily what I would be implementing in the county.
Well, no, actually, this is because you are running for County Council
Okay.
District 7. So let's talk about what, as an elected official, your land use philosophy would be.
Okay, but I just want to clarify that it would also be my responsibility to represent the constituents in my district, regardless of my personal beliefs. However, I do believe in sustainable development. It's a paradigm which enterprises measure and report on financial performance, social wealth creation, and environmental responsibility. The company's responsibility lies with the stakeholders, anyone who is influenced directly or indirectly by the actions of a company, rather than just the shareholders or the owners. That's a paradigm that I saw happen, an example at Kohane Iki. It was required that the developer pay impact fees. It was required that the landowner take into consideration the cultural and social and environmental circumstances surrounding that piece of property. equity. I also hold very dear a concept of a triple bottom line and transitioning how we look at the economies of scale in our businesses and developing land and other enterprises. This is an accounting framework with 3 parts: people, planet, and profit. The people, providing social equity in the decisions that are being made. The planet, considering environmental and ecological factors. And profit, financial and economic. But those 3 things being taken into consideration, none outweighing the other. There's also a 4th, a quadruple bottom line that's being introduced, and I feel very much resonates what Cynthia says, and it's future-oriented, taking into consideration future generations and intergenerational equality. The decisions that we're making about how we treat our land will affect generations to come. We have global issues here on the Big Island, but we also have the opportunity, because we are a microcosm of the world at large, to make decisions that can fundamentally change and improve the way that we treat our Aina and the way that we develop our communities.
Thank you very much. We're just going to take a minor technical pause while Candy works on that little technical detail there. And then I'll let you think about the next question, which is going to be a 2-minute question going to you first, Ms. Nazara. And you, Mr. Casso, brought this up. And that is the water well situation here in North Kona. County Council District 7 is smack dab in the middle of the area that is covered by the Department of Water Supplies area, where they have 14 wells. 7 of them are high-level wells, and that means the best quality wells. When I say high level, they're high elevation. And for the past 2 years, they have had between 3 and 5 wells out of service. Just so everybody understands, we have plenty of water in this aquifer. I mean, we've done lots of interviews with folks. There's at least 150 million gallons of water underneath where we are right now. So the accessibility is the issue, not the availability. But Department of Water Supply, which is a semi-autonomous agency, has told us repeatedly they don't know what the cause of the problems are or is. They don't know what the cause is. Thanks, Bronston. This is not a commentary on the League of Women Voters. I'm just absolutely sure of it. Anyway, Department of Water Supply has not been able to tell us what the problem is. They say they are working on the problems, but they don't really know what the fixes are, so they continually fix a well, and then the well breaks, or they don't fix it, and it's really not a great situation. Right now, we're on a 10% voluntary restriction, and they've told us that if we don't continue to cut back, they will put us on 25% mandatory, which actually, we've done a great job, you know, the people who live in this particular area. But the situation would not be tolerated at any private industry as it's being tolerated here. I have personally spoken with the mayor and the managing director, and they don't seem to feel the same kind of urgency that people who live in this area feel. The Water Board, which controls this semi-autonomous agency, also, in my personal view, doesn't seem to feel that urgency that all the people feel who live in this area. So 2 minutes, what legally will you do as a member of the Hawaii County Council to stop what is obviously a huge money drain and get the expertise in to get this fixed? And Ms. Nazara, take up to 2 minutes and tell us how you plan to address this ongoing issue.
Well, first of all, I'd like to find out why, you know, because everybody's asking why. Why is this happening? Why don't they have the part? Why is this? Why is that? The first thing I thought about was like, we got a part that's missing, and why didn't they order another part? Because that part that broke wasn't going to last for 100 years. First thing. And then you like, duh. Then we thought, okay, so the other pump broke, so they're telling us that we have to restrict the water that we use. Now, come on. All the car washes use water unless they're dusting dust on your car. So why don't they talk to them? You know what I mean? And you can wash your car at home. You know, I've been driving around my car for a month. I haven't washed it. I mean, it's not that bad. But the thing is the water wells need to be better managed. They put the water there, and I don't think that somebody went there on a consistency to check on that thing They're like, okay, we leave it there, it works, the part's there, okay, that's it. Did they go and check every year, every 6 months or something? If they did, this wouldn't have happened. Because if your child was there, you would check on your child, you know what I mean, as they're growing. But there's poor management, and there's no consistency in things that are done here on this side of the island. We build a park, we say, okay, the state gives a park to the county, okay, and that's what I mean, consistency. We don't have money. That's a famous, we should name this town, we don't have money. You know, we do have money. Where is it? It's there somewhere. But the water is so important to us. Water is life to us. And we collectively need to work on that and get a committee together and really work with those people that turn the switch on and off for our water.
Thank you, Ms. Nazara. Ms. Drysdale, I'd like you to address the issue of the water wells, which are run by this semi-autonomous government agency or county agency. 2 minutes, please.
There's, as there are districts, as there are council people, there are also 9 people that sit on this autonomous, semi-autonomous board representing each district. And I've been reading over many of the agendas and the minutes from a lot of the meetings that have taken place in recent. And right now we have Honokahau, Palani, Hualalai, and Waiha'a wells offline. They're asking us to have 10% reduction in our usage. Last year when Ironman came around, we were down 5 wells. And the people coming in the thousands had no idea that we were limited in our water supply. And was there anything that was done to get them back online? No, we were sitting here, sitting ducks per se, without having 5 wells to accommodate all the people that were coming to town. I think that, I mean, I've looked at the numbers that they spend, and they're astronomical. They're $800,000 for this, and you know, just numbers that are beyond my comprehension, really. And I just think that we need to get these people in line and/or remove the semi-autonomy from them and possibly have them under county supervision at some point.
Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas.
Yes, being that the water board is not governed by the county council and it's semi-autonomous, I also want to point out that they do not utilize our budget. They don't contribute to the budget for the county, but they also don't pull funds from that budget. However, efficiency is necessary, and there need to be a number of backup plans. We need to look into inventorying of parts and keeping those parts on hand. And for some reason, the word keeps evading me, but when you buy something and you buy the extra, what's the word? So that if warranty, yes. There is a challenge with warranties on these parts because if they hold a large inventory, often they go out, the warranty expires, and then they have parts that they can't use. So getting a better understanding myself of also the geology on this island, it seems like it could be a good idea to standardize these wells and increase the technology, but once again, we have really unique geology here. We have really unique requirements, and they are very, very different from one another, going from just a few miles apart. Restructuring the water supply, the Board of Water Supply would require a charter amendment, which can be done. So I think that we're all seeing some lack of efficiency. We're all questioning how and why, and it was rumored that it was another department that was looked into, and they were opening cupboards and money was falling out, and there was kind of a gross mismanagement of that department. And it's not my understanding that that's what's happening at the water board, but I think that there is an opportunity to have a better look taken at that. I also know that council members Eoff and Kanuha have asked for an audit, and so I have not heard what the reports of that audit are, but it sounds like we're heading in the right direction to find some answers.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso, take 2 minutes and talk about your solution for the water situation.
I think the first thing we need to do is recognize that we're not any different than the rest of the world, and these specialty parts we can start with. We can utilize different styles of parts, but at the end of the day, we're not any different than the rest of the world. There are multiple places where we can go to have some of these parts there. but it's also storing these parts as well. We need to have a strategic plan. I'm pretty sure that the Department of Water Supply does have one, but we need to look into it. The Water Commission, I believe, has. And likewise, the Water Commission came out with a great idea to create 2 different wells for one system. It's a primary and a secondary well. And if the secondary well goes down, the primary can pick it up. We need to start thinking about the people it affects. It affects people in the residential areas. It affects people who are coffee farmers in the North Kona area. It affects businesses. So we need to start thinking about those things and make it a little bit more urgent. We need to start talking with our administration, with the Board of Water Supply and the director instead of giving him a raise. And then we also need to consider creating task force, let the community be heard, and let us submit testimony to those who are in charge of the Board of Water Supply. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. As some of you have mentioned, there is a bill right now before the County Council that would address the whole issue of vacation rentals in residential areas. And as I understand it, the status is that it has been postponed because there was so much testimony today, and it'll probably be heard again here in Kona. There's a lot of amendments that are being considered. So my question for you is, and please take 90 seconds, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Casso. What do you want to see contained in the bill that would regulate short-term vacation rentals on this island? And this is a 90-second question.
I think Bill 1, there needs to be a bill that needs to be passed no matter what. There are illegal vacation rentals all across this island. So Bill 108, I believe it's in its 4th draft, right? There were so many amendments that went to it, so it's so hard to keep up with the current amendments to it. I think we need to think about the person that is in charge of the VRBO or Airbnb to consider that person. A lot of these are individuals who are just trying to survive like everybody else. So we need to have compassion for them. We need to find different ways and different avenues to support them. And yes, we do need a permit, or we do need a small tax that's against I believe, the transient accommodations as well. Mahalo.
Thank you. Just a 30-second follow-up. He didn't use all his time, right? No, he didn't. So you said we need something, that's okay, 30-second follow-up. What did you say about the transient accommodation tax? What are you proposing?
I don't think it's, I believe it's separated from the two. So there was, in the state legislature, there was, on the floor, maybe about a year and a half ago, there was a possibility where illegal vacation rentals were going to be taxed more. How they were going to implement it, they didn't know. That's why the county has facilitated something like this. So I think that working in conjunction with our county, our Hawaii Visitors Bureau, is important.
Ms. Nazara, 90 seconds. What do you want to see included in any bill that regulates short-term rentals, vacation rentals on this island?
Well, first of all, I don't think they should be in a residential place. And we all know that there are lots of them that don't even comply to the rules. So there's got to be an introduction of a better task force, or whatever you can call it, to regulate those vacation rentals, how they're handled, how much they can charge. I mean, they went from like $1,500 a month to charging $1,500 a week. You know, I take it off the rental now, so I'm going to charge $1,500 a week. So anyway, I'm against that vacation rental, and only because there are a lot of people that our priority should be homes for our people, and not so much that. I know that it brings business in and it works with the tourism and all that, but first things first, you know, take care of home, and then we can work on those things.
Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas, what do you want to see included in any vacation short-term rental bill? 90 seconds.
First, I want to point out that we are the only county without any legislation regarding VRBOs and Airbnbs. Secondly, whatever bill is passed will continue to be improved as circumstances change, as humanity always does. I agree with the part that's included in the bill right now, that if you live on the property, you are exempt and grandfathered in, and there isn't an issue with you renting a room or renting an ohana as a short-term rental. I also believe that the taxes that can be gathered from the implementation of this bill will not only help bridge some of the gap in our budget constraints, but it also sends a message to the state that we are taking measures to collect the taxes, our own TAT taxes, and perhaps would give us some leverage to come knocking on their door for a higher percentage of the TAT tax for our county. I also want to make sure that it's included some verbiage and language that we continue to discourage non-residents from buying up our housing inventory and using them for short-term rentals. I think that is one of the largest issues and one of the reasons why this bill has been introduced. That and people renting their homes and having nobody, according to state law, you have to have a real estate agent representing that property who can be accessed, but that is not what's actually happening, and the state doesn't have a person to police that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Drysdale.
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we know that there's a lot of people out there who count on the income from a rental to be able to sustain their life. And yet we know other times that people who live in residential areas and have to deal with people who are coming in as vacationers have to deal with a lot of noise factors. And when there's nobody there to police the issues, that's where we run into some problems. As a matter of fact, I was in that situation where I lived in a condo, and it was the next door was a vacation rental, and people were up partying till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're having to get up and go to work at 5. And we tried to get a hold of the owner and say, would you please contain your rentals, or your people? And they're like, oh yeah, and then nothing really happened. So we really need to implement some sort of strategic saying that says that, that's, first of all, they have it quiet from 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. to 8 a.m., 5 rooms or less, less than 30 days, and to be able to, as Rebecca said, utilize the taxes on that to cover some of our shortfalls might behoove us.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you all to address a 90-second question now, which is, you, if elected, will be responsible for managing the budget of this county, or at least contributing to managing the budget of this county, and that's a huge responsibility. Most people don't know how to manage a government budget. It's not the same as managing your checkbook at home. So I'd like to know specifically in 90 seconds what you have been doing to prepare yourself to handle the county budget. And Ms. Villegas, you're going to go first on this question, because we want to feel real confident that if you get the job, you can handle the budget.
All right. For starters, I would not be asking to be the head of the Finance Committee, because I think that takes many years being on the county council in order to be vested and ready to tackle that. I know that the county council approves anything and everything that has to do with financial transactions in the county, including but not limited to the operating budget and the capital budget. The operating budget is funded mainly with real property taxes and some fee collections, as well as money from special funds. An example is the highway fund, which is made up from fuel tax dollars. Our county is currently facing a $5 million shortfall due to properties destroyed by the recent lava flow. I support, and if I was elected, I would vote to support a 2.5% increase in the GE tax surcharge. This has the potential to provide $20 million per year. $20 million for the first year because it wouldn't start until January 2019. These GE tax monies may only be used for transportation needs, including road repairs, bus systems, and trails. The 2.5% increase can help balance the budget by replacing approximately $5 million that was allocated to mass transit in the general fund and adjusts it with the GET monies. This frees up $5 million that was lost in property taxes from Puna properties, thus balancing the budget. Excuse me. The VRBO bill and getting an equitable share of the taxes will also help fund
Thank you.
the county's budget.
Thank you. Just a 30-second follow-up. You said a 2.5% increase in the general...
Apologies, 0.25%.
Okay, and you do know the county council's already passed that?
Yes, I apologize, yes.
Just checking?
Yes.
Okay, just as information?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that correction.
Okay, and I don't believe the county council will have another opportunity to address the GE tax because they have passed this. They will get another perhaps opportunity in the future when this particular addition expires. Ms. Nazara, how specifically are you preparing yourself to handle the county budget? 90 seconds.
Well, first of all, I was against the GE tax, only because there are so many small businesses here that are trying to make a go and make a living, and here we go and we're taxing them again a little bit more. And so it's like, hello, you know, we have all these mom and pop stores, and then we have Costco come in. It's good, but what about those guys down there? Anyway, that was just an extra thought. But I would try to see where the money is going, how much percent is going where, and why is it going there? You know, and the priority of it, is it going to the parks? Is it going to our affordable housing? And if it is going to affordable housing, what is affordable? You know, everybody says we're going to have affordable housing, and the money's come from wherever. And what is affordable to you, to me? You know, like I said, everybody's living paycheck to paycheck. So there's a lot of money there, but we don't know where it's going and why it's going where it's going. And I'd sure like to know where it's going and why it's going there.
Ms. Drysdale, if you are elected to the county council, you will be managing the budget. How are you preparing yourself to do that? 90 seconds, please.
I was just reading over from the Office of the Legislative Auditor and some of the audits they're conducting this year. And one of them is in countywide overtime. And I think that is a place where they were wondering if it would be more conducive to hire people to cover those positions or to pay overtime. So that's something, that's an audit that's going on this year. Road maintenance is another one that they're going to be auditing, and there's definitely some room in our budget for some cutting and slicing and dicing. I personally would not like to be the head of the Finance Committee, but I'd love to be on the Finance Committee because I happen to be a very frugal, some people call me Paquet, but I really, in my position right now, I sit on every single dime. I want to know, I heard today that we had an expense that was X amount, and I just went through the ceiling. So I really want to be able to sit down and look at where we have some fat, where we can cut it, where we can make more applicable choices for our hard-earned monies.
Thank you. Mr. Casso, 90 seconds. How are you preparing for budget management?
I've read through the entire budget for this next fiscal year. I've seen the different revenue sources that's coming. Looking at different revenues, I believe that West Hawaii currently creates more revenue through real property taxes, and I think that's a problem. You know, we pay a higher amount of property taxes, and we don't have that much income coming in. We can supply our Department of Water Supply with adequate equipment to build our wells and even our homeless. Looking through the budget, one of the things that I've done too is look at the past as well as the future. And so I think when it comes to the future, we need to start looking at different grants, looking at federal money that comes in to the county. We need to supply them with even with our state and working with our state legislature to supply more money from the transit accommodations tax. And that's important too. And then another thing that I would like to see in the budget for next fiscal year is if we don't balance out, we need to get rid of the contingency fund for all council members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was just thinking as an aside, one thing that you guys might want to consider whichever one of you gets elected. There's also fees. For example, right now, if one was to raise the fees for the Hilo Municipal Golf Course by $5 a round, that would wipe out the $600,000 deficit that they experience every year. It's only $5 a round. To me, that would seem like a good thing, and I know that council members have attempted to do that, but think about that for the future. Sorry, this is not about me, but it happens to be one of my personal little things. And I love golf. I love playing golf. So the county council, and this will be a 90-second question, the county council did pass the general excise tax surcharge of 1/4%. Goes into effect in January. It will be for 2 years. And at the end of that time, the hope is that the state legislature would again allow the county to vote on that. The GE tax adds about 26 cents to each $100 of purchases. So it's not that great an amount, but it would bring in $20 to $25 million per year. If given the opportunity to vote on that, and let's take actually 1 minute on this question. If given the opportunity to vote on that, would you vote for or against? And what would you want to see the projects, the money given for, understanding it has to be used for transportation in some form, whether it's buses, bikes, roads, whatever. And Ms. Drysdale, we'll start with you.
When the .50 came up, I was dead set against that. And then they made a compromise for the .25. Knowing what we know now with the property taxes that we will not realize from the Puna real estate that's been destroyed, I think that, well, first of all, I would, going back to the question before, I'd like to get into the finances and see where we can find the fat. But since I am not there, I would like to be able to say, yes, I would vote on the .25. And I think the 5.0 comes up again in January. I think it was tabled until January for another look, but they're both sunset in 2020. So I would like to see, I'd like for us to look at some ways to have our roads fixed through some of the plastics that we're seeing wash up on our shores. And there's a company in UK called McReber that does exactly that. They make roads out of plastics that normally would find their way to the landfill.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso.
I think we're taxed a little bit too much in this state, but what we could do instead of taxing people is make our belt a little bit more tighter when it comes to the county. Like I said before, we can cut discretionary funds, we can cut contingency funds from administrations and the county council members. Likewise, I think that looking at talking with various different people in my community, they're all concerned about raising the general excise tax. But in the end, thankfully I didn't have to make that decision. I would have supported the 1/4% increase because of the lava flow. And I'm actually really happy to see that there is an expiration date. So we probably won't see that go into the legislature once again until when that expires. So mahalo.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nazara, your position on future GE tax increases.
I'm against it. I'm against it because, like I said, we have so many people here struggling, and to add that to them, and yeah, there's a money, they could have found money, like Rebecca said, open this thing, and all this money kept spilling out. Oh, where was it all this time? So there is money there, we just need to look for it. So to raise that for the people that are trying to start their own business and continue to live so that they can maybe one day in the near future buy a home and be affordable. Having that tax thing is like, no, I'm against that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas.
Aloha. If provided the opportunity to represent District 7 on the County Council, I would vote for the 0.25% increase in the GE tax. I would like to see those monies, well, they have to be allocated to the Department of Transportation, and road repairs. I happened to run into some friends of mine at Lonnie House Center just the other day, and they were fixing a very large divot in the hole in the road. We also have lots of room for improvement on our bus systems. It would be fantastic if our public buses operated a little more efficiently, if we were able to purchase new buses. It may draw more people into using them. Also, trails. I would love to see more trails built. This morning, walking my dog, I happened to run into a gentleman who surprisingly talked to me about taxes and said, please, don't be afraid. I'm willing to put in a little extra.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to ask a 2-minute question now. Ms. Nazar, going to you first. And this goes to the lava flow. The financial risk for the eruption is really being borne by every person on this island who pays property taxes and fees, but generally property taxes, and that includes people who pay rent, because typically a landlord might raise your rent based on what property taxes he or she is paying. The county budget is funding most of the recovery and response to the lava flow. So I think everybody agrees that the county really has to fund the immediate response, the immediate issues that come up. But there's a lot of question about what the county should pay for relative to moving forward. Should the county create new subdivisions to house displaced people? Should the county replace their housing? What is the county's obligation, in your view, relative to the lava flow, not for the short term, because clearly that's a government responsibility, but more for the long term? So I'd like you to take 2 minutes and give us your thoughts on this. And again, we're starting with Ms. Nazara.
Well, when it first happened, the lava flow and all of that, we were like, geez, didn't they know they were in zone 1 and 2, And so what now? And now so it's gone. And whether we believe it or not, they've enjoyed all of that. I'm not trying to be uncompassionate, but they've enjoyed it. They've did it. Did they save? Did they do anything? And I know insurance is hard to come by, down there. But the county, I don't think, really has a full obligation to support that because of that. We have people that have more needs here on this side that we're trying to live, and children that need a home to stay. To fully support that, I don't think we can or we should. We can help them by going down there, taking whatever we can, but for the county to fully go and support that financially, I don't think so. I think they should stay home and support our people here that need a house, that need someplace to work, better pay or something. I'm just not, I'm not uncompassionate about that. But, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Drysdale, what do you see as the county's long-term obligation relative to recovery from the lava flow, specifically for housing for folks who have been displaced?
Well,
2 minutes.
Is this on now? Yes? Okay. I think, as I mentioned before, the county has taken some of their property, and that's where they've put some of the small houses. I think that because the lava has inundated and taken people's property, and now it's become county or state land, that we can then take other county or state properties and put that towards property where people can either build, or we can do something with those properties so that people have a place at least to stay. FEMA pays a portion of the monies that are being put forth for this effort. And if in fact in 2014, and I learned this at a community forum, that in 2014 when we had Estelle and we had another lava flow, FEMA paid the state for those disasters, and yet the state has never reimbursed the county. So perhaps if we had the county reimbursed by FEMA on that particular instance, we'd have more money that we could put forth to possibly take care of some of the people, maybe build some public housing where people would have a place to live and call home, and put it on county property.
Thank you very much. Ms. Villegas, 2 minutes on what the county's long-term obligation should be.
Well, this is a complex issue because it's tragic that the county ever approved rezoning for these areas. It's tragic that developers ever capitalized on subdividing these neighborhoods and selling them as very affordable lots because of the dangers of Zone 1 and Zone 2. There is a lot of talk now about not ever allowing or rezoning or having any higher density development in Zone 1 and Zone 2. I think that there's an opportunity for land swaps, like Kelly said. I know the state is talking about some of the money some of the land that's there. There's opportunity to collaborate with the state and the federal government for support. We're experiencing a unique crisis. I don't think that the answer is completely clear-cut. I don't think that the county has an obligation 50 years from now to continue to try and rehome these people, or perhaps even 10 years from now. One statistic I heard was that 4 out of the 5 homes in Kapoho were vacation rentals, short-term rentals. So I think it's really important to take into consideration, if we have 671 homes that have been lost, what are the specific circumstances of the families that have lost their homes? How many are still needing housing? Of the 300 people that are in one of the shelters right now, 100 of them are chronic homeless people from the area. So to really statistically look at the demographics of the humans we're dealing with, what their specific needs are, where they do want to go, if they have a plan for themselves. I have friends that have lost everything and they've decided to move back to the mainland and join their families there. So I think it's going to be important to take these situations on a one-by-one basis.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso.
As somebody who's been boots on the ground down there and seen it firsthand, it's really heartbreaking to witness all of the destruction down there. I think the county needs to we need to lead a charge for this to supply housing. There was an emergency declaration that was created through Governor Ige as well as Mayor Kim. And I think we need to support that. Likewise, the county and the state agencies already are working on long-term housing units for those individuals, and we need to support that effort.
Thank you very much. I'd like to follow up with that with a 90-second question, and you brought this up, Ms. Villegas. The county and state allowed building in lava zones 1 and 2, which are the highest risk areas. That is not a secret, that's well known. So should the county continue to allow new subdivisions and issue new building permits for lava zones 1 and 2? And I'd like to start with you, Ms. Villegas.
Definitively no in Zone 1. Now, it's a little more complicated for Zone 2. All of Ocean View is in Zone 2. There are thousands of homes already built in that subdivision and in those areas. So I think that will be a little more complicated. However, I can definitively say no for Zone 1, and I think that it could be really reconsidered if there were any permits in process or that are applied for any higher density building in Zone 2. That should be taken into consideration before any of that would be approved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso, should the county issue new building permits and new subdivision permits for lava zones 1 and 2, 90 seconds?
I don't agree with building on Zone 1. Obviously, we've seen the destruction over there. Likewise, for Zone 2, like Rebecca has said, that it becomes a difficult problem where those in Ocean View, those in Pahala, they're all in Zone 2. And so trying to take people out of those areas is not an option. So what we need to do is look at the long-term plans. I know that our current government likes to put timelines on things, but we need to seriously take a look at what the USGS has considered and work with them and create a strategic plan, really, on how we're going to mitigate for those that live in Zone 2.
Ms. Drysdale, and I'd like to point out, I did not say anything about kicking people out of their homes. I'm asking, should the county issue new building permits and new subdivision permits in Lava Zones 1 and 2? 90 seconds.
I think we're all pretty much on the same page here. I think lava zone one is just, it's ridiculous to even consider having commercial development there or any other type of development, seeing as what we've just witnessing right now. Again, as both Braunston and Rebecca have stated, we're talking Ocean View with a Zone 2 area. And Sherry, no, I agree. Kicking people out of where they already have homes is not an option. But I think that Lava Zone 1 is absolutely positively no more commercial development.
And Ms. Nazara, 90 seconds, your position on new building permits or new subdivisions in Lava Zones 1 and 2.
Well, I'm in agreement with everyone else, and Zone 1, absolutely not. For whatever reason, no. And it won't make any sense going down the road in the future. But for Zone 2, we have to look at that now and we have to be proactive instead of reactive. Okay, it may happen. You can never tell. But what are we going to do if and when it does? Is there a backup plan? Everybody's like, nah, it's not going to come. And what if it does? So being proactive would be a good thing, for those Pahala and Ocean View, and that community is really, really growing. So because it's growing, we have to be proactive and get a plan down now. Don't wait until it happens and then we're running around like they say, chickens without a head.
Thank you. I'd like to clarify something. Somebody mentioned that lava overrun, the land now belongs to the state or county. It does not. If you own a piece of property and it is overrun with lava, it is still your property, although the county will immediately zero value it, because that's what it's worth. But I just wanted to mention that. Nobody takes the property away. Okay, wastewater. That is a super fun topic, and nobody really likes to talk about it. As Bill Kucharski, who is the head of the Hawaii County Department of Environmental Management, says, wastewater is the kind of thing where you flush the toilet or the water goes down the drain and you really don't think about where it goes. But we have some very serious issues here relative to wastewater. The sewage in West Hawaii is not being completely treated. In many cases, it's going right into the ocean. Some of that is the state responsibility, but the county does have a wastewater treatment plant that, as an aside, is only being used to half capacity. Maui County was just sued and lost because their wastewater treatment plant was not adequately processing sewage. So I'd like to give you 2 minutes to tell us what Hawaii County should be doing relative to its wastewater, particularly here in West Hawaii. And I'd like to start with you, Ms. Nazara. 2 minutes on wastewater.
Well, I think, like you said, our wastewater management is very poor. We have filters for this and we have filters for that. And the fact of the matter is, I always reflect back to my great-grandmother. We had a water tank, and she put a bag over it, and that was it, and it was very easy. It was very simple. And with high technology, it became worse, and I know because there's more people. But in doing so, like I said, they planned back then, they never planned. That's why we're in the situation now that we are. So in planning for the wastewater, I'm not an engineer, but I know I work with an engineer, and for him, he shows me the whole graph and says water, septic tank is clean water, clean water. I work on the highway and we have sewer water and we have fresh water, and then we have this thing called reclaim. And I'm like, what is that? And they say, it's good water. It only has a little bit of stuff. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't know, no. But they say the hotels all use reclaimed water to water their golf courses. I say, I don't think so, because you'd be all itchy and whatever. But anyway, our wastewater productivity here is bad. I mean, even if we think we drink the water, we take a bath with it, when you really look at it, it's bad. So if we don't know how to collectively take care as each individual, forget being a community that has clean water.
Thank you very much. Ms. Drysdale, tell us how you think the county needs to proceed relative to our wastewater.
Well, I know that Bill Kucharski says that he stays up nights trying to figure out how we're going to go from even the cesspools to sewers to other modern technologies. I've done some research into compostable toilets. I've done some research into modernization of separating the gray waters. And right now, the treatment plant is going through an upgrade, whereas the R1 water is supposed to be used for the regional park. So,
And R1 water is what?
I'm sorry?
R1 water, define.
Is it's not potable water, but it's water that can be utilized for irrigation. So it's not drinkable water, but you can utilize it, say, on golf courses, as Cynthia was just talking about. The upgrades, right now, they're going into effect, and I forgot where my train of thought was. I'm sorry, Sherry.
Start over then.
No, I'm talking about the modernization of new technologies and so on that we can be looking into so that we aren't utilizing the treatment plant so fully, so that there's other ways by which people can dispose of waste and not have to go through the treatment plant. And actually, there are some things that are going into our ocean, and it's not good. So I'm hoping that these upgrades are going to satisfy that situation.
Ms. Villegas, wastewater.
As an avid surfer in my younger years, I've spent a lot of time in the ocean. I've worked with the Surfrider Foundation, Sustainable Coastlines, the Hawaii Wildlife Fund. All have seen devastating evidence of what's leaching into our oceans. I think that it's really necessary for our wastewater treatment plant to finally finish being updated. I understand it's scheduled for 2020, and as Kelly said, it would provide R1 water that could be used to water the regional park and the old airport park. There are also opportunities in science of microorganisms. I know that in Japan, I know that Brenda Ford talked about it earlier, but I've seen some videos about microorganisms that have been utilized to clean up lakes and rivers and large ponds. I think there's lots of science and technology out there that we're just not aware of yet. I'd also like to point out that this is another opportunity for us to potentially utilize water conservation technologies, utilizing gray water. Let's install low-flow toilets and low-flow showers. And in neighborhoods where it's appropriate and the geology allows, there's the currently being worked on is the Lonocona Sewer Improvement Project, and that's what some of us might call Hamburger Hill. In that area, it's possible to put in a sewer improvement project. In other areas of our coastline, it's not. So it's going to be vital. It's cost prohibitive for us to create sewer lines and sewer systems for every neighborhood here. So we're all going to have to work together to identify solutions, to look at communities that have found solutions to these problems, and try them here, and to keep working together, because it is a huge issue.
Thank you. Mr. Casso.
I like to see a community task force for with the environmental management, as well as the Department of Health and the EPA. I think that would be a great start to discuss some of those things that are happening with our wastewater. And secondly, I think that we should invite Maui County to come over and tell us a little bit more about the lawsuits that's been going on over there. We can learn a little bit more, and we probably have the same things going on here, and it's about learning. So if we invite them, let's work on the task force to create with the EPA, the community, the Department of Health, and let's come together on this.
A quick 1-minute question. Ms. Villegas, climate change is happening, and our county has, for a long time, not really addressed that issue relative to how they do building permits and things that may impact us in the future, which could also create county liability. So some folks would like to know what you would like to do or what you would propose the county do to address climate change. 1 minute, please.
For starters, I want to say thank you to our county for recognizing climate change. In the current political arena, that's not always recognized, and I think that it's really heartening that we are recognizing it here. We live on an island. We will and are impacted by sea level rise. I think that we need to take into serious consideration the places that have been approved and permitted for building close to the shorelines. It's my understanding that changes have been made and permitting will not continue in the same capacities that it has been. Larger setbacks have been required. I know that that's something that we really looked at when planning the park for Kohaneiki, is will this be far enough back and will there be a park 20, 30 years from now? So I think we have the opportunity once again to work with scientists and to identify our weaknesses and come up with proactive plans and to not be afraid to say no.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nazaro, 1 minute, please. How should we be addressing climate change in this county?
By being more aware of what happened in the past, you know, along Ali'i Drive, there are homes there, and they are going to be eaten away, the shore in front of the homes. And it's a sad thing that I grew up here and watched those homes block out the ocean, but, you know, everything takes its course. But then our climate change, it affects everybody. The climate change affects up in the mountain, whatever is up there comes down here, and it affects everybody in between. So climate change is it's happening, whether we want it or not, it's gonna happen. And so in that change, I think the county should be more aware and pay more attention in all of our groups, or get a task force, or do something, you know, like the community can come together and do it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Casso, climate change.
NOAA created a study that states $19 billion in the state of Hawaii will be affected in damages. That's 6,500 structures by 2100 because of a 3-foot sea rise. So by 2100, I'd like to see our planning department, our County of Hawaii, to take action by implementing every 20 years to set setbacks every so often. By 2100, I think that we're going to have to move about 2,000 feet. Hopefully I'll still be alive by then, but by 2,100 feet. Yeah, we're going to have the community come together on this, because it's going to be an ongoing issue for our future.
Thank you very much. Ms. Drysdale.
There's been talk of different ways to address that, and some of them are either building walls or building dunes or building plant life or anything like that. But quite frankly, I think in general what we need to do is we need to have more, and I don't mean to say more regulations, but we need to have better rules on how people are building along the shorelines. And for those that have already built there, we need to understand that the properties there may and probably will be affected, and that the county needs to start implementing some new rules that will have setbacks that are further back for any new building that comes up.
Thank you very much. So each of the candidates gets 2 minutes for a closing statement, and as they gather their thoughts, I'll just mention we did have some questions that are not applicable to County Council. One of them is about 30-meter telescope, and that is right now before the Hawaii State Supreme Court, which will make a decision as to whether it is going to be allowed or not. And then it is up to the state to address the issue of how they will manage that. And it's also up to the state to address the whole issue of the astronomy lease at the top of Mauna Kea. So that's why we're not really asking about that, because that is not a county council issue at this time. But we do want to ask you for your closing statements, and we're going to go from right to left with that. We're going to start with Ms. Rebecca Shute Villegas. 2 minutes for your closing statement, if you wish to take 2 minutes.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you for being such an articulate and fair commentator. And thank all of you for taking your time to be here tonight and to listening to us and to talking to us. As a lifelong resident of the County of Hawaii, I have seen the County Council evolve as a productive, collaborative, and effective group of community leaders. I would like to be a part of that continued transformation and perpetuate its focus on solutions aligned with constituent concerns. I hope I've shown you why I'm a good candidate for this position of public service. My platform is grounded in the values of this island. My kuleana is to serve its people and this place. It would be an honor and a privilege. I believe I'm ready for the honor and challenge of holding public office and serving District 7 on the County Council. Please get out and vote. Take your friends, take your family, take strangers. Get out and vote. On August 11th, the future of our community depends on it. And I would urge you to consider Vote Villegas. Aloha and thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nazara, 2 minutes if you'd like it for your closing statement.
I want to say mahalo to everyone that came to participate and to hear our concerns and how we want to work with the community. Everyone that participating in putting this together. I know that I'm qualified to run for this position, particular office, because I've been involved with the community in everything. And I thought, well, fishing. So I went to the fishing, West Hawaii fishing, and it was a tremendous learning. And then it was like, okay, and what about the rest of the land? There's so much construction going on, development. So I went and I got nominated to be on the Hawaii Island Burial Council. And that was a great learning tool for me. People that didn't understand it. And then, we're sitting there and they don't understand, and yet they're there asking us all these questions. But the key to that was education, as I said. They needed to know why we're there. And like everybody else, all of our constituents need to know why, if elected, why we are here. We're not here to get a higher pay because I make more money than I would ever make here. But, it's the passion inside that I was born here. I mean, I'm born on Oahu, but raised here. My family for generations has been here. So I want to make a difference. And, looking for the betterment also for our generation and working towards a bigger force. More importantly, but hearing the heart of my community is a priority. So go out and vote.
Thank you, Ms. Nazara. Mr. Casso.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate that. And Sherry, thank you for moderating. It was awesome. Thank you. I would like to say that we are all in this va'a together. That's a canoe. We are all in this va'a together. And I would like to be your steersman. I'd like to be your council member. And let's steer the course. Let's come together. Let's ho'olohe. Let's listen. Let's kuka. Let's discuss some of these issues. But more important, let's lokahi. Let's come together and unify. I come with life experience for my age. I'm a young man, but I've been through businesses. I've worked with Paradise Helicopters in the operations, working with our agriculture as a coffee farmer. I'm boots on the ground, and I am committed to working in every single department and learning about those departments, working in our commissions, being present in every single public meeting. That's important to me because we together can change our community. As a young man, it's very interesting to see. I've received 7 working union endorsements and multiple businesses for this campaign, and it's absolutely amazing to see. So let me be your steersman in this va'a, and on election day, vote Casso for Kona.
Ms. Drysdale, 2 minutes, please.
Aloha, and again, mahalo to everyone for being here, and Sherry for moderating, and for the sponsors, the Community Forum. I was actually made in Hawaii, which is why I have an affinity for living and working here. And when I was working and managing at my parents' restaurants, I had the opportunity to listen to and speak with many of the citizens of Kona and hear their concerns and hear what they wanted to see and have done differently. And the topics that are high on my list aren't necessarily my topics of concern, but the people with whom I've spoke. I may not speak very well on occasion because I'm more of a doer than I am a talker. But when I was given the opportunity to speak with the people, the topics of the people with whom I spoke would be the topics that I would, I'm sorry, again, the people I would be representing if in fact elected. And it's not a personal agenda that I have, but an agenda of the people. My sole aspiration and quest for this office is to be a public servant and to represent the citizens of my district, hence my slogan, people's voice, people's choice. And to conquer some of our adversities, we need to think outside the box and come up with creative and modern solutions. As I mentioned before, McReber of UK is a company who specializes in taking plastics and making roadways out of them. There's also a company called Lucid Energy in Portland, Oregon, who makes electricity through their water pipes. I'm a critical and creative thinker. I'm passionate about my community, and I'm a fair person with common sense. And for that, I would like to be considered for your vote, and I thank you very much for this time.
I'd like to remind everybody that walk-in voting begins on the 30th of July, goes through August 9th. You may walk in at any of the places, Aupuni Center, Pahala Community Center, West Hawaii Civic Center, Waimea Community Center, Pahoa Community Center, and you may register to vote at walk-in voting or on Election Day if you've not registered. But Sue Durson back here with the League of Women Voters is dying to give you your voter registration form, if by chance you haven't. I would like to thank all of you for coming, thank the League of Women Voters, thank the Community Forums Group, but mostly really thank you, the candidates, because you have a huge commitment to public service. Doing this is not easy, I know, just the running, but then sitting here and letting us grill you with questions. So thank you so much, and let's give them a warm thank you.